Welcome back, Defenders. Jake here. Yesterday, there was another attack on the Crimean Bridge. So, do we get to play the song, Cursed Bridge on Fire? And unfortunately, we don't get to play the song. I don't actually think the Cursed Bridge is on fire. Kyiv takes war to Russia with multiple strikes on Crimean Peninsula targets, many of which were shot down. So, as of this morning, I've not seen any new pictures or videos confirming additional damage to the bridge. Yesterday there was a lot of confusion. I think this picture captures it best because smoke was rising from 8 different locations on the bridge. People thought this was a successful attack, but it was actually just the Russians setting off their smoke generators to protect the bridge. How much does smoke protect a bridge from GPS-guided missiles? Not a whole lot, but maybe if drones guided by cameras was trying to strike the bridge, then sure, Russia, smoke might help protect your bridge. And according to Russia's Ministry of Defense, Ukraine attempted to strike the bridge with converted S-200 missiles. This is pretty interesting, and I think this is the first time I've heard Ukraine attempt to do this. Russia has already been doing this, converting old surface-to-air missile systems, repurposing them for ballistic ground missile attacks. And the S-200 is not a good system. It was developed by the Soviet Union in the 1960s to defend large areas from high-altitude bombers. So the S-200 air defense missile is a behemoth completely unsuited to modern warfare. Today's jets and even helicopters are simply too fast and nimble, so Ukraine has repurposed these S-200s as a ballistic missile. So this is interesting. Ukraine did not try and strike the bridge with their best, most capable systems, the SCALP and the Storm Shadow. They used their junk, from the 1960s. So why would they do that? Now here's a picture of the bridge with the smoke going off. The bridge was shut down yesterday, causing massive disruptions. 2 lanes are completely out of action, and the remaining section is down to a single lane for light vehicles. But eventually Ukraine is going to hit this bridge. And of course, with all these missiles going off in the sky, Russia set off their air defense systems. Russians took out their phones and started filming. This is just a natural thing for civilians in the area to do.
Oh, please.
So that is Russia's air defense systems going off, chasing after these junk S-200 missiles. And here's another picture and video of where Russia's air defense systems are located. The Russian man who took this video and posted it online was actually arrested by the FSB and forced to film an apology video in which he's not wearing a shirt. I don't really understand Russia. So Ukraine possibly did get valuable intelligence from this attack with the S-200s. Perhaps a stronger attack with their more capable long-range weapons might be coming in the near future. Eventually Ukraine's going to get this bridge. If you think your job is pointless, think about those who are currently trying to repair the Cursed Strait Bridge. And Ukraine's troll level is epic. This is posted on their main page. Cursed Bridge repair kits as a Lego set. This is not real. This is meant as a joke, but it definitely it's pretty good. Ukraine issues warning to Moscow residents: expect more daily attacks. So of course, NATO-donated equipment can't be used on the territory of Russia, but there's nothing stopping the Ukrainians from developing their own domestic weapon systems to go after targets in Russia. And Ukraine has invested billions into their domestic drone capabilities. Another drone attack on Russia's capital this morning. Ukrainian military intelligence told Kyiv Post, "There is a certain justice in how Moscow residents are feeling right now." So, Ukraine's capabilities are only going up over time. Their production rates and their intelligence. So, this is the new normal for the capital city of Moscow. Drone attacks every day or every other day. Yes, many of them will be intercepted and shot down, but many of them will also hit their targets. Ukrainian tanks are in Urozhaine and inching towards Mariupol. So when we check in with the military map, Ukraine recently has made progress on two fronts. This is the village of Urozhaine. They already took Staromayorsky last week, and they've hopped this little stream, and they've now taken this village as well. Additionally, we've got pictures and videos showing that Ukrainian forces have entered the village of Rabatina. They haven't completely kicked the Russians out yet, but they are in the village, probably going to take it in the next couple days. So here's the headline. Ukrainians advance 16 to 20 kilometers in a tactically significant move. Ukraine made a tactically significant advance along two lines of attack towards the southern coast, according to Russian and Ukrainian sources. The Ukrainian troops seized 16 to 20 kilometers of territory, which the Institute for the Study of War says will likely weaken Russia's defenses in aggregate, raising the chances of a breakthrough. Additionally, there was a large explosion at a weapons depot in Oleshki. This is on the other side of the river from Kherson. Severe Russian casualties are being reported. And Ukrainian troops in the Kherson region are having their way with the Russians. Ukrainian troops regularly cross the Dnipro River, probing Russia's defenses in the Kherson Oblast. So ironically over here, where the river is, Ukrainian forces don't have to worry about entrenched defense lines or minefields. They're getting pretty good at these riverboat crossings. And the Ukrainians really want to gain control of this road right here, because this is the last reliable road going through the land connection from Crimea. If Ukraine can somehow get a bridgehead and take control of this road, this is going to devastate Russian supply lines. So let's get a report on the ground from the average Russian soldier, and we've got another video from Dmitry over at War Translated. So this is the man who's going to be speaking. As always, I'll link the video down below if you want to check it out for yourself. But this is what he says. I am Lieutenant Konstantin Padavev, commander of the 3rd Platoon, 1st Company, Military Unit 69368. So this is a Russian officer speaking, not a conscript. And he states he's appealing to the Committee of Russian Soldier Mothers for help, stating, "We are mobilized from various towns of the Moscow region, arrived in the town of Serpukov. We went without any military training, only fired one magazine on the shooting grounds, and then we were sent to Ukraine, the city of Skadovsk, where for 10 months we were simply digging, sawing, building, carrying, and doing other jobs instead of preparing. There was no medical or combat training whatsoever. Then we were thrown to the first line of defense, where we have been for 2 weeks now." Head of intelligence of the Dnipro Group, Major General with the call sign Altios, came to us to give us this task. He was explained we're unable to go due to lack of equipment or training. Wow. In the end, they sent us there without proper training, without air support, artillery support, without any heavy equipment. I'm not even mentioning that our location has no logistics, no transport of ammo or medicines or provisions of any kind. We're taking heavy losses. Nearly 40% of personnel is lost. Morale of the troops is now below floor level. Here are all the guys that are left of my platoon. So it's just, looks like 7 of them. What else? I'm asking for your help. They took away our phones so we couldn't record an appeal. I don't care anymore. I'm ready to do it, and I'm asking for your help so your relatives, husbands, sons, brothers could return home safe and alive. And my guys could return home too. So the only chance these Russian soldiers have to not die is if they surrender to the Ukrainian military. That is their only chance to live, as their leadership chain and the Russian government doesn't care. They don't care if these men all die. War until 2026, Russian soldier claims he's been told to expect 3 more years of fighting. In an intercepted call, a Russian soldier also tells his mother that soldiers that are unfit for duty are being declared healthy and sent to fight on the front line. So Putin doesn't care if 500,000 more Russian men die in Ukraine, as long as he can hold on to this territory and expand his empire. Then he can stay in power and cement his own legacy for getting the land bridge to Crimea. And Russia has no expectation of militarily winning this war anytime soon. The Russian military has not successfully advanced anywhere on the map in over a year. And 2026 is interesting because they talk about this on Kremlin state TV, that they want to get a freeze in the conflict or an armistice until the 2024 election in the United States. A new president will be sworn in January of 2025. They're hoping all military assistance and aid to Ukraine will be cut off, and then Russia can somehow magically start making progress on the battlefield to defeat Ukraine. So the next clip I want to share with you guys is going to be controversial. This is from British author and a man who strongly supports Ukraine. His name is John Sweeney, and 2 days ago he posted this video on Twitter that got a lot of attention, so I want to share it in its entirety, and then we're going to talk about it.
War Diary Day 533 of Russia's war against Ukraine. I asked my old pal Vlad Demchenko, who's the Ukrainian soldier who arrested me on day 2 for being a Russian spy, how's it going? And he says it's bad. Separately, I've spoken to another chap who delivers Western aid to the Ukrainian army, and he also said things were bad. The reason they're bad is the Russian army has adapted. It's using a lot of drones, it's using a lot of night sights. Vlad said one day his team, they've got 3 drones at any one time, and they raided a Russian trench and they found 26 boxes of Chinese-made drones. So there's a serious problem in that China is shipping an awful lot of stuff to Russia, and the Russian army is adapting, and the Ukrainians are losing a lot of people. The problem is, for what? For not much gain. Not much gain at all. So this is very, very difficult, and it gets worse because the West are not sending enough stuff, and what they're promising, they are not delivering. So some statistics out. Germany, for example, has promised a lot of anti-artillery stuff like this, and it's only sent half of what it's promised. So my Ukrainian friends are losing a lot of people. They are shedding a lot of blood for very little progress, while people in the comfortable West are dithering. Pull your finger out, all of us, because otherwise Russia will prevail.
So John Sweeney is in the capital city of Kyiv, stating that the Ukrainians are losing too many people for too little gain. This is a controversial statement for a man who supports Ukraine, and I'll just read you a comment. take a nice shower, maybe shave a bit, and then consider who benefits the most from this tweet. Did you have a conversation with Scott Ritter before uploading, or just plain stupidity? Do you think those in charge are listening to this, or will the Vatniks use it? John Sweeney, of course, defends himself, saying, "No, I said that Ukraine is losing too many people for too little gain because the West is being too slow to send arms. But Ukraine must win this war. The evil of Putin's Russia has to be stopped." So as an American, I can only speak for America. I can't speak for other governments around the world. But the United States has sent more military aid than every other country combined. Now that's deceptive because the European Union has taken in millions of refugees, caring for those people. The United States, I think, has only taken in 200,000. Additionally, the EU is providing more financial aid, so it all averages out. Europeans are providing more money, the United States is providing more weapons. But there's growing concern, frustration, and anger. Why isn't the United States sending ATACMS? Why is the United States only sending 31 Abrams tanks when we have thousands? Why won't the United States send additional Patriot air defense systems? And this is where we get into conspiracy. I want to share this thread from Garry Kasparov. I really like this guy, and the Kremlin hates Garry Kasparov. And here's what Garry has to say. Ukraine's allies still follow arbitrary Kremlin rules that allow them to murder more Ukrainians. Children are being killed by rockets and bombs launched from Russian territory. Precision long-range weapons with expert Ukrainian targeting would save innocent lives. So he's responding from a statement from Kulba, this is Ukraine's foreign minister, begging on Twitter, "Please send us ATACMS, please send us Taurus missiles. We promise we won't use them on the internationally recognized territory of Russia. We'll only use it against valid military targets in the occupied territories." So Gary's going to continue. Needed weapons are moldering in NATO nation storage facilities, withheld by cowards from doing the job they were created to do, fight the Russian military. Why? Why is it considered too dangerous to kick Russia out of Ukraine, but not for Ukrainian civilians to die? Is there a deal with the Kremlin, cooked up by Burns, Sullivan, and Kerry, to keep doors open with Putin's mass-murdering war criminal regime, like the latest Iran deal, handing $6 billion to a terror state? What other reason for the immoral and strategically blind delays? So why? Why is everything being delayed? Why is Ukraine not just given all the military equipment they need to expel Russia from Ukrainian territory? And I'm going to be controversial here and say, yes, I think there's a conspiracy. I think the West is doing enough to help Ukraine stop the Russian advance, but not enough to completely expel all Russian soldiers from Ukrainian territory. President Biden has the Lend-Lease Act, and he's not flooding Ukraine with thousands of tanks and armored vehicles and hundreds of jets and helicopters. The United States does have that capability. And I think the reason why is fear of who will replace the Putin government. I do think that for Western governments, especially France, Germany, and possibly the United States, they want to see Putin and his government remain in power because Putin has not used nuclear weapons the last year and a half. Russia has a stockpile of 6,000 nuclear weapons, and they've chosen not to use them. They're exercising restraint. That's insane to say, given all the terrible things Russia has done, but they've not used nuclear weapons. So now let's think about Prigozhin and his thunder run to Moscow that almost worked. What if Prigozhin took over the government in Moscow and vice president of Russia was Dmitry Utkin, the second in command of the Wagner Group. The guy is an actual Nazi. Would Dmitry Utkin choose to use nuclear weapons? That is the fear that Western governments have. So I do think military strategists, policy experts, there's a lot of people who say, let's keep giving Ukraine enough to stop the Russians, but we want Russia to realize they can't win this war and just pull out themselves. Eventually, things in Russia might start becoming so shaky that Putin just says, to stay in power, I need to pull all my soldiers back to my own territory. Is that going to work? I don't know, but I think that's the fantasy that a lot of policy experts in the West currently have. So 10 months ago on my channel, I made this video titled, Ukraine will not win this war militarily, there is a better way. I published this video on September 24th of last year. I'll link it down below if you guys want to see what I was saying a year ago. But I do believe that for Ukraine to militarily win, to kill every Russian soldier, to destroy every artillery piece, to shoot down every plane, the losses that Ukraine would take doing that would be so horrendous that it's not worth it. Instead, what the West wants is for there to be a political revolution in Russia or an economic collapse that causes Russia's military to just pull out of the occupied territories. If you've been a long-time follower of my channel, you know I've talked about the effect that raising rates from central banks is having on the global economy. Russia's economy is the least prepared in the world for a global recession, a global slowdown. And the plan is working. If there is a clandestine war to destroy Russia's economy, then the best metric for measuring this is the strength of their currency. And if we go back in time, 7 months, the exchange rate of US dollars to rubles was 1 US dollar to 60 rubles. It's now triple digits. It's now 100 rubles. Meaning that Russia's currency has lost 40% of its value over the last year. Globally, it's one of the 3 worst performing currencies in the world. Pretty soon, a single sheet of toilet paper will be worth more than a single Russian ruble. And the Russians are taking note of this. Here is Solovyov's response on Kremlin State TV to the devaluation of their currency.
У меня вопрос ко всем депутатам Государственной Думы, членам Совета Федерации. Скажите, пожалуйста, а вы не замечаете, какой сейчас у нас курс в стране? Скажите мне, пожалуйста, вы хоть один запрос в ЦБ отправили? Чтобы эти люди пришли и объяснили публично. Объясните, пожалуйста, стране, что происходит. Что такого случилось, что такой курс? Ведь это приведет к росту инфляции, к росту потребительских цен. Притом это выпадет как раз в пик на время избирательной кампании. Даже не объясняет, какого хрена курс так скачет, что над нами вся заграница теперь смеется. Что самые слабые, одна из 3 самых слабых валют у нас рубль. Благодаря гениальной политике Центробанка, который даже презирает народ, чтобы хоть слово ему сказать о чем-то.
Solovyov is starting to crack. So where I'm going with this is for Ukrainian military forces to go trench to trench, village to village, taking casualties and losses. It's just horrendous. It's just horrifying. Would Ukraine be able to successfully do it if they had all the equipment they needed? Of course, the answer is yes. But I still argue a year later, the best way to defeat Russia is to just hasten their economic collapse, cause an economic crisis that forces a political shift in which their military just gives up on the occupied territories. So when looking at the size of the Russian economy, I think this is based on their own reporting from the IMF. Russia's economy is set to shrink this year by $153 billion. That's more than any other country in the world, given there is a recession occurring in Asia, and I think maybe even the European Union. In addition, everything in Russia, according to the news, is just falling apart. At a Russian air show in Kaliningrad, a Russian Su-30 jet just fell out of the sky. This is a $62 million plane, completely destroyed. Both pilots are dead. Was this pilot error? Was it a mechanical malfunction? We'll never know, because there's no truth, there's no accountability anywhere in Russia. Bad stuff just happens all the time, and nothing is solved. Russian officer flees to Lithuania, asks for asylum. A Russian lieutenant, Ivan Korolev, illegally crossed the Lithuania border and asked for asylum. We need more of this. This is one of the good Russian officers. Let's get to the good news for Ukraine. Ukraine situation reports the United States is boosting artillery shell production to 80,000 shells a month. Despite sending Ukraine more than 2 million 155mm artillery rounds, the Pentagon is comfortable it can keep supplying Kyiv and maintain its own stockpiles. So the United States is trying to increase their own domestic production of artillery. The Europeans are trying to do that as well. The EU has successfully delivered to Ukraine an additional 223,000 artillery shells under the first part of their plan to provide 1 million rounds to Ukraine this year. Honestly, this is the dumbest and easiest way for Ukraine to win this war. Find a way to just have an overwhelming advantage in artillery, produce enough shells, and just let the Ukrainians keep firing on Russian positions until they're all gone. The Netherlands handed Ukraine medical complexes for work in the fields. These are some very nice trucks. Thank you so much, the Netherlands. Final clip I have for you, I want to highlight the amazing work these unsung heroes do. These are sapper teams that go out into the field for demining and removing dangerous explosives. So this is a Russian Toshka-U missile that was found in this field. It never detonated, so it's still very dangerous, and this is how you get rid of an undetonated missile.
Так, что там, заплешивает?
Сейчас зачистим. Нормально. Витечек зачистили.
Увага!
Огонь.
The missile's too dangerous to transport, and you can't reuse it, so there's nothing you can do aside from detonate it in the field. Wow. That's all for this update video. Glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. If you found this video informative, give me a thumbs up. Best way to support the channel. Comments and questions, let me know down below. I love hearing from you guys. Till the next video, keep defending the truth, keep defending democracy.